to the workspaces. Hybrid workspaces, virtual workspaces, smart workspaces, and sustainable workspaces are only a few of them. Thanks to COVID for bringing some of these office real estate innovations to the forefront. Special thanks to the policymakers and sustainability leaders for inspiring the industry to think about sustainable workspaces. Office real space has obviously transformed completely in the last 5 years, and it will keep transforming in the next 10 years, and it will, I'm sure, look very, very different in the next 10 years. And that's the reason we are hosting a thought leadership panel on reimagining innovations and sustainability in office real estate. We have Booqed with us, who is co-hosting the panel, and some truly amazing panelists from different parts of the world with the right expertise and experience in this space. This is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Venture Partners. We are a deep tech revenue accelerator and fund based out of Singapore with approximately 100 portfolio startups. These startups are B2B post-revenue at a stage where they have done meaningful business in their primary market, serving to a couple of Fortune 1000 customers, and now have ambitions and aspirations to grow internationally. And this is where we help these startups with acquiring enterprise customers, fine-tuning their go-to-market strategies, and expanding in new geographies. This panel is, again, pretty interesting, pretty relevant because of the topic that we are going to talk about, because of the sustainability initiatives that are driving the industry. We have David Wong with us, who is the CEO of Booqed, and Booqed is one of the portfolio startups that we onboarded in the recent July 2023 cohort. I would request David to do a brief intro of himself, and then I would request panelists to do an introduction of themselves. David, please.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's a pleasure to be here. So again, my name is David. I'm co-founder and CEO of Booqed. We're a prop tech company with offices in Hong Kong and Singapore. We provide solutions which are focused on helping to future-proof the workplace by providing solutions which can help companies easily plug and play real estate solutions as part of any other part of their outsourced tech stack.
Thanks a lot, David, for the quick introduction. May I request Ibrahim to do a quick introduction, please?
Thank you very much, Pankaj. My name is Ibrahim Kocagöz. I'm Engineering Solutions Director at PCS Thailand Facilities Management Company. I'm working and living in Thailand since 5 years. And PCS Engineering and Facility Management Solutions, actually, we are the biggest player in Thailand with 56 years experience. We've got 34,000 employees in Thailand. We're providing not only engineering facility management services, we're also doing security cleaning and catering services also in Thailand. And we are existing in 11 countries in APEC with more than 70,000 employees. I lived and worked in also Middle East 10 years and in Russia before, but I'm originally from Turkey and living in Thailand. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Ibrahim, for joining today's panel. Rishabh, may I request you to do an intro, please?
Thanks, Pankaj. I'm Rishabh. I'm Director for Business Operations for Space Matrix based out of Singapore. Space Matrix is a design and build company where we help corporates transition from like their current workspace to whatever they want to aspire to. So starting with workplace strategy to design and then helping them along the way for changing their work style. We are based in 16 cities in Asia Pacific, and we have delivered projects in almost 100 cities throughout these offices.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Rishabh. And I'm sure that you must be extremely busy in the last 3-4 years. Good busy, right?
Yes.
Thanks, Rishabh. Eric, please.
Hi, everyone. And thanks, Pankaj, for the invite and David for hosting. I'm a partner at RCT Ventures based in Singapore. We invest in and advise companies in real estate innovation and technology. I have a broad background in commercial real estate with leadership roles at WeWork and Ascensus and some other prop tech companies, and very pleased to join this esteemed panel today. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Eric. Gaurav?
Sure. Thanks, Pankaj, for the invitation, and thanks, David, for moderating this panel. So yeah, my name is Gaurav, and I'm working for Ernst & Young in the sustainability practice. So essentially, we work in the climate change and sustainability services. My background is I come from real estate background. I'm an architect by qualifications. I practiced as an architect for about 7 years, and then transitioned into sustainability and green buildings thereafter. I'm working from Singapore. I'm located in Singapore. Though overall, I think we have about 5,000 people across the globe for the sustainability practice. In EY, what we are doing now currently, helping a lot of different sectors, including real estate sector. So with my background, I work with a lot of real estate clients, and I think some of those discussions will surface today. So happy to join the panel. Thank you.
Fantastic, Gaurav. 5,000 employees in the sustainable practice. That's a
yeah. That's quite interesting, right? I mean, EY has about 350,000 people across the globe,
right.
On all service lines. But yeah, for sustainable practice, of 5,000 people.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Again, thanks to the panelists for joining today's session today. I'm sure that we are going to have very insightful conversation. David, I know that you have some really burning questions with you that you want to ask and get the feedback from the panelists. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Pankaj. Yeah, look, I think, since we have leaders in both real estate and work tech, I think I wanted to start off with a bit of a fun question. And when we talk about sustainability, as Pankaj mentioned, there's just this is really a buzzword right now. We've seen a lot of changes in the office as a result of COVID. So with all these changes going on, I guess my first question would be, what are your biggest challenges as real estate and work tech leaders? What are your biggest frustrations right now, as in dealing with these with these particular topics?
Probably we may start with Ibrahim.
Yes, which is very, very good question. The biggest challenge is actually, frustration, that we are having in this industry. Okay, we are providing many solutions, to our clients. We have got in Thailand almost 5,000 clients in 5 different locations across the Thailand, and of course we have got potential clients. One of our biggest goals and targets promote energy saving solutions because of the not only electricity or high energy prices, also because of the sustainability goals for our company and for our clients. But unfortunately, decision making is taking so long time. That's a problem. There are many players, of course, in the market now for energy efficiency, for innovation, such as IoT. They call it everything IoT now. For the indoor air quality, for energy management, or for renewable energy, many players. And the biggest challenge, of course, taking decision, because we believe the companies, especially big corporate companies who takes decision very slowly because they've got process, they don't have enough expertise internally to evaluate. Even there's an investor we bring or we invest for the solution. It takes so long time. I can give you an example, very simple example. We promote to one of our clients solar energy since 5 years, and return on investment is less than 5 years, almost 4 years. They are still thinking about it. So if they were invested already, they already recovered their investment. It's only one small example. Whether they need to invest or not, they are hesitating to take decision. But the key problem is, in my opinion, internally they are not able to evaluate, because there are many players in the market for renewable energy, also for the innovation such as IoT, for other solutions. So there is no proper evaluation. So maybe this is another business opportunity for the players to come up with different model. Thank you.
Thanks, Ibrahim. Eric, how about yourself? You've seen it from the co-working perspective, and obviously on the other side as well.
Yeah, I was going to jump in because I think what Ibrahim was mentioning about the overall timing dovetails well with one of the bigger frustrations we see, generally when we think about, innovation in commercial real estate, which is really a lack of understanding, I think, on both sides. On the side of innovators, startups, scale-ups, you have a lot of companies that have great solutions, but don't necessarily understand the real estate industry and the complexities, therein. And for what Ibrahim just said, like, for example, understanding that a sales cycle is probably going to be 12 or 18 months, at best, if you're talking about a commercial real estate development, and being caught off guard, for a startup on that kind of sales cycle can be a recipe for disaster. At the same time, with established players, commercial real estate operators, developers, owners, I think there tends to be a lack of expertise or resources to really, an infrastructure to evaluate in a reasonable amount of time, and with some sensibility, the many different solutions that are out there, because we're talking about a very complex thing here. So as an example, oftentimes if a specific solution might, if it's related to a building, might be sent to an asset manager to evaluate, but they're not necessarily an expert on procurement or the solution itself, and they have a million other things going on. So I think we still have this gap of solutions providers and players of I think an understanding and I think infrastructure to sort of remove friction from more innovations happening.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I can share a bunch of client experiences where we've actually seen that. Rishab, I'd be interested to kind of get your perspective from sort of a design view.
I think in terms of design, we are seeing a shift in the industry where it used to be an optional thing for some companies who were forward thinking. Now it's becoming more of a standard in the industry, so that everybody is thinking in some way to implement sustainability. And also clients' approach is changing beyond just adding greens and thinking about employee wellness. They are thinking about data, they are thinking about technology and modularity in terms of sustainability. So it's like a broader approach to sustainability than it used to be before.
Interesting. Gaurav, how about yourself?
Sure, David. Actually, the challenges that I have seen, and especially while serving our client, we have noticed something during COVID and how it evolved, right? So during COVID, when we started working from homes, it became a norm after a while. Initially, meetings like these were not really possible, then it became a norm. And later on, we noticed that a lot of people, or the workforce, right, they are having challenges to come back, right? So even employers are very much cautious to call them back. So there's a whole wave of resignation, right? So this is affecting the workforce and this is affecting the space. So for example, the place I work in, we occupy about 7 floors in CBD area, right? In one referral scheme. And there's a very heavy and capital intensive kind of space you're renting and leasing out. With whole this changing needs of the workforce, it's very challenging to understand the space requirements. And this is where you're looking at a bit more flexible space requirement, whereas you can serve the workforce as well as you can save on resources, right? Rental, for instance, energy, water, waste, all these things. So that's one of the challenges that I see, and a lot of companies are also working towards it. I also used to work as an architect, so I've seen a lot of companies shifting from a bigger office to a smaller office, looking at the pattern of their employees coming to the work and all those requirements. And a lot of companies also starting looking at the well-being of the employees by providing some kind of ergonomics furniture at their place itself. So these are the kind of challenges I see, which are very much work office related, commercial office related.
So as a follow-on question, I mean, what kind of technologies do you see sort of kind of in the coming years making the biggest impact in the industry, given the gaps that you're seeing?
Maybe I can pitch in this one first, right?
Yes,
so one of the key technology that something is emerging and really important is something like digital twins. So essentially you are making a duplication of the building, and that's very much related to monitoring the building, right? The energy management system, all the sensors that you put in. That's something has been quite emerging. And second thing that is really important that I feel is use of AI. Again, I know it's a very big umbrella term, but we have been using this whole use of AI in different aspects. So the kind of work that I do, we are trying to digitalize it, identify the patterns through AI and automate the work, right? And that is kind of helping us to shift the patterns of work from home versus work from office, right? So these are the two key technologies I'm thinking I kind of see are emerging and helping businesses to transform their businesses.
Thank you for that. Rishabh, just to get your perspective, again, from a design company, are you starting to see specific requirements, for technology from the clients that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think now increasingly clients want to see the impact of sustainable decisions they are making. So like how these like deploying sensors to see occupancy of certain spaces. And now the approach is changing because all the mundane tasks, like if I'm going to get on a Zoom call, I can do it from home. So if people are coming to office and the real estate value is increasingly becoming larger and larger, they are considering things like adaptability. So sustainability also in the sense that the space that I'm creating now is sort of like a working pilot. So as we gather more data, see usage patterns, it keeps on evolving with the company's culture and their future usage pattern. So like technologies to sense the occupancy of meeting rooms, is it occupied by 4 people, is it the right size, and then continuing to make these decisions in terms of design based on those technologies. So we are seeing increase requirement of all those data-backed decision instead of just aesthetics in terms of design.
Interesting. Eric, from your perspective, I know you're probably meeting quite a few companies, startups as well as prop tech companies.
Yeah, if you think about sort of the technologies in the next couple of years with the biggest impact, I think you have to look at direct and indirect, right? I think what was just mentioned was probably more in the direct impact to commercial real estate. And then I would add to that, with a lot of pending government-led sustainability requirements coming in, largely led from other parts of the world, but that will inevitably affect here. I think we'll see things around, energy reduction, carbon reduction technologies, as well as new and green materials. In the sense that, pretty soon, like when things are getting built, it'll be going to green materials, that is the default. And then when we look to indirect technologies, of course, AI and advances in mobility are going to change how real estate gets used and the business model of it. But I would I want to answer this question with like the least sexy version, which is, I think the biggest technology impact is going to be like the internet, phones, laptops. I mean, if we think about it, all the changes and impact we're seeing to office now is really just the reckoning of advances in like personal communication tools and technology that have unchained people from a desk. And these things take decades to make their way through a system that is built on, in other parts of the world, 10, 15, 20-year leases. Here, still many multi-years and development projects that take many years to complete. So I think actually the biggest impact is just going to be, the technologies that are more mundane and taken for granted now, because that's what drives, say, the complete wholesale change in how office is used.
Yeah, totally. I mean, especially in real estate, right? Where I think deep tech is still, I think it's got a ways to go, right? So, Ibrahim, how about yourself?
Yeah, I always say, I mean, since long time, the features in the energy storages, and still I'm saying the same thing on the many platforms. As much as we can store the energy in a smaller scale, in a smaller place, it will be the feature. It's since long time it's like that. I mean, because you see the innovation on the batteries, etc., and of course, renewable, sustainability part of the is also very important. So, and people are especially now more sensitive and educated in terms of sustainability. So they are evaluating also the storages, how they are sustainable, how we can recycle the storages or batteries later on after the usage also. So it's very important. So I'm expecting a big innovation, big jumps on the energy storages. So we can expect that much of size of the battery that can run the plane. This is the innovation. This is what we are expecting and hoping to see it very soon. Because as you can see, there are many energy resources now, including renewable energy, but storage is still a problem. Sometimes it is, you see, even demand is dropping down, but production is always on. And then for sure it will be brilliant to store the energy in a small scale. This is my expectation. And second thing, as a facility management company, especially my role and my team's role is about technical maintenance. Still, I mean, in the developing countries, also it's a problem. Manpower is an issue now. It's in the hotels, office sectors also, especially new generation. They don't want to work on the ground like technician or worker. So definitely, I mean, we are not talking about replacing completely human with solutions or technology, but trying to increase the efficiency. Really, I mean, instead of going to the site, checking the temperature, pressure of the utilities, we expect this information to come to the platform. The technology is available, but the problem is with the full solution. And of course, commercial part is also important. Either it's super expensive, or it's not reliable, it's not good quality. So, I mean, heavily, most of the facility management worldwide also, they are not still using. We see on this BMS, they are using the building management or building automation systems, but not on the facility management part. Of course, when it is completed, it will be integrated with the building information modeling as well. So I'm expecting innovation and developments on this sector as well. David, thank you.
Thank you, Ibrahim. It actually raises up an interesting question. This is something I think it sort of flows into a little bit about what we've been talking about. And what I've been considering is, if you look at sort of the role of the regulatory environment in terms of fostering change in policy and driving sustainability innovations. So, for example, what you see is two very different regimes. For example, in Singapore, I think the government is actually being quite proactive in mandating sustainability strategies for real estate companies and for enterprises. Whereas in Hong Kong, it's been a lot more laissez-faire, right? Basically, hey, you don't want to do it, well, you don't have to do it, right? I guess the question to the panel here is, and I'm not saying there's any right or wrong, but I'd be interested to kind of get your thoughts in terms of, what might actually be, from an implementation perspective, more effective? Is it a government-led, policy-driven approach, or is it something where, hey, let the free market decide, and basically with everything that's going on, is it something that you need to let, say, companies themselves implement or push to get to the end goal? So I'd be interested to kind of hear your thoughts from all the panelists. Maybe we start off with you, Eric.
Sure. I think it has to be both, right? I think there has to be some combination of it. At the end of the day, as much as we would like, I think everyone still doesn't correctly factor in the costs or the hidden costs of not being sustainable, right? Everyone looks at it in terms of, dollars and cents and what I have to pay over my bottom line now, but everyone's really bad at sort of factoring in, second order effects and the cost to the environment and all of those things. And because of that, I don't think the market itself can get there. And I think, to me, kind of the role of government and the role of policy-led change here is kind of to do that, to force those hidden costs into the calculations that companies are making. It's not, necessarily has to be so heavy-handed and with an approach that sort of is, often people are anemic to regulation, right? It can be there's many ways you can get the market to start to factor in those costs. And, people have been pushing, carbon credits and markets for that for years as one example. But I think there's many others, and especially when it comes to the built environment and real estate, it's got to be sort of a combination of the two. So again, not that there's right or wrong. And to your example, I don't think the Hong Kong regulators and government, it's not like they're doing nothing. I agree with your characterization. But I think there's a lot of ways you can get there.
Interesting. Gaurav, how about yourself from sort of a EY perspective?
So actually, it's a very interesting question, and this is something I consult on almost very day-to-day basis, right? when you look at regulations, especially nowadays, the disclosure regulations, for example, right? Sustainability reporting and disclosures. There's a huge wave going on in Singapore. They're mandating sustainability reporting. They've mandated TCFD reporting, which is climate-related disclosures. And recently, I think 6 July 2023, there was this consultation paper that came out from SRAC, which is Sustainability Reporting Advisory Committee by SGX and ACRA. They want to mandate all these reporting disclosures for non-listed companies as well, because until now it was all about listed companies, but now they're looking at non-listed companies. So you're right, Singapore approach is very aggressive in terms of top-down approach. And as much as democracy, I agree with Eric, right? It has to be a combination of both, but I do believe the kind of urgency that we are in climate change, we are looking at 1.5 degrees Celsius and down non-ambitious targets. I think regulators really have to play a big part, big role. Talking about Singapore, the kind of plans that you see, Singapore 2030 plan, the 80-80-80 plan, all these are the plans that cascade down from government to regulators and then to individuals, company. At the same time, we do have real estate companies such as CDL, right? City Developments Limited, which are like an industry leader. Although they are listed, but they do lead the market and they do a lot of initiatives. But I deal with so many clients, especially the SMEs and all. If not compliance, they wouldn't really move. So I think regulations and the top-down approach is really needed. To be and I think some intensive incentives are also required, and that needs to be topped up with some market leaders to lead the way. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and the reason I asked the question was, and look, I had this was actually reflecting on feedback I received from a property developer in Singapore, where they were kind of going, well, government says we have to do this, but it's actually only skin deep. We're not really, we're only doing it because the government says, right? Whereas in Hong Kong, I think if they have a choice, they'd probably not do it because you have, you don't have to, and it costs money, right? So what would be, I guess, given those sort of two policy directions, I totally agree. I think you need both. But from a sort of as a real estate leader or an innovation leader, kind of leading the charge on this, what would be your response in terms of implementing an effective sort of sustainability policy? And maybe I can talk to Ibrahim on this.
Yes, David, actually, it's interesting. Just yesterday, I visited Ministry of Energy in Thailand. They have a energy efficiency department. It's part of the Ministry of Energy, because they released a revised, amended building energy code, which says the buildings more than 2,000 square meter has to follow these requirements, like facade or lighting, cooling systems, etc. And I was wondering, I mean, this is for the new buildings or all buildings they want to do renovation? So I was, of course, curious. I mean, how they control. Is there any penalties? Because we don't hear such kind of things from anyone else. So I went there to visit them, and they explain. Actually, it's very good. It's part of the building construction permit. If you want to do renovation or construction, so it will be part of it. So they will not give the approval. That's good. But on the other hand, they have got same regulations, actually, enforcement for the energy efficiency, that buildings or factories consumes, I mean, or with the size of transformer, big transformer, they have to report to the government every year that they are doing energy saving. But it's very high level, because, I mean, you cannot expect from the same building maybe continuously every year energy saving, right? Isn't it? This is so. Same question, of course. I asked them. I mean, what are the enforcement or penalties, etc. And well, they said, I mean, there's no penalty, but it's like a carrot and stick. So they are trying to promote. This is right if they want to promote, but it's also not clear. So I'm coming back to the regulation part also to answer your question. So since long time, again, about the regulations also, I'm talking the same thing. it must be regulated by the government. Otherwise, if you leave it to the completely to private sector, of course, they will look from the cost perspective. Okay, I mean, everybody here, they are announcing, it's everywhere, same. In Thailand also, I visited the factory, they did a presentation, and they are saying they are net zero. I said, well, I'm looking to factories, impossible, no way. And they say, no, the factory in other country, somewhere else, I don't want to give the name. I say, yeah, so, but they are saying globally, they are net zero, all the manufacturing side. It's not right, but they are using for marketing because they need big investment, and they are, so basically it's coming to the commercial, but my opinion, it must be regulated for sure up to a certain limit, but you cannot expect the company to save energy every year, because otherwise they can make a trick. You know, they say, okay, let me not save the whole energy this year. Let me put it to the other years. Then, so you need to be, sensible. So it must be regulated, but also it has to be promotion. Like you can say, if you save energy on top of it, this one, you can build this one, or you can get, and the taxes return on the investment returns. So government is playing a big role here, and of course private sector also. But in my opinion, the top one is government has to be regulated here.
Oh, thanks for that perspective, Ibrahim. If I can just pause here, I'd like to introduce our other panelist, and Delphine, who heads up innovation at IKEA Real Estate. Welcome. Maybe you could just briefly introduce yourself, and then I'd like to jump in with another question.
Please unmute.
Yes, sorry. So, sorry for my delay. So I'm in Europe, I'm in Luxembourg. And yes, I'm head of innovation in a real estate developer, where we are acting on office building and in residential dwellings. We are not doing very large office building, would say between 5,000 square meters to 15,000 square meters. We are in Europe, therefore, yes, there is quite a strong requirements as far as sustainability is concerned. And in fact, I'm also General Secretary of the Smart Building Alliance here in Luxembourg. And what we aim at is really to develop the joint requirements for the market and for the stakeholders of the market, in order to enhance the use of smart building technologies. Well, those are my two activities, and they of course they meet whenever we are talking about sustainability targets, as yes, even for new developments, having, of course, not only a building techniques, so but also having smart building enablers in order to be able to increase the ability to reduce the energy consumption of the building, and therefore this is for the new asset that we have to deliver an asset that it is smart enabled, in order for the tenant or for the buyer to fetch the data from the building in order to monitor it, to make all its CSR reports in an efficient way, and to monitor the decrease or the retrofit afterwards they have to do in order to always be efficient in an energetic way.
Thank you for that. It's actually a really good lead into my next question. Maybe we could start off with you, Delphine, as well. Looking sort of over the next coming 5 to 10 years, when it comes to sustainability and innovation in the built environment, what do you see the biggest changes, or what do you expect to see, as the biggest changes in the coming few years?
For us right now, well, maybe also for me, because I'm in charge of innovation and also about of the carbon roadmap of the company. Therefore, all my innovation projects are really focusing on the carbon reduction of what we deliver as new buildings, but also on our assets. And therefore, the challenges for new buildings are as well incorporated carbon. That means the challenge on the material we are going to use for our buildings. Of course, in Europe, we talk quite a lot of timber, but it is also about digitizing and industrializing the construction process. That it is one innovation, would say, subset of the challenges for technology, because in fact the topic is really the ability to go to scale. Whenever we are talking about office building, those are very specific with architects and with challenges in order to be well, very well suited for large investors. In Luxembourg, we've got a lot of banks, insurance, and therefore the buildings have to be very impressive. And for example, we have been able to deliver the most sustainable building in timber with here in Luxembourg for a bank, for an insurance, Baloise. And in fact, it was already with industrialized process, at least for the large timber panels. But the architecture is very beautiful. On the other side, there is also all the recycling issue, which can provide solutions for the carbon reduction of the construction, but needs all an ecosystem within the country, and it is very difficult here in Luxembourg. We don't have the scale for enough, so it's going to be a large challenge for us. And then the smart technology and really develop the smart building. And that's why I'm so part of Smart Building Alliance, because I think that this needs really to be to share the same protocol requirements, evolutivity requirements, overall from the GTC, the techniques in the building, for example, the Sauter, Siemens, and those large players, ABB, large players for really the office building and equipment for heating, ventilation, and all this has to be monitored and equipped, but if possible, in an evolutive way. That means that we are really fighting against proprietary protocols and this kind of things in order to deliver resilient building as far as technology is concerned.
That's definitely a challenge, I think, that we see across the board. Thank you for your perspective. Rishab, same question for you. What are you, if you had to sort of bet on the sort of the top technologies or things, the biggest changes that you see happening over the coming decade?
I think as sustainability becomes a standard and like getting certifications for LEED and WELS become very common thing for all corporates to think about, smart technologies and implementation of those technologies will become very important. So not only this will empower decisions in terms of how they can optimize energy, but like Gaurav mentioned, even the way this data is visualized using like metaverse or digital twins, because currently there's a lot of data, but there's no easy way to visualize and make sense of all that data. So that will become much more easier in the future, even with the help of AI that can, generate reports or give insights based on that data. Also, we see in the design sector, especially like the thought about circular economy, like, what is the end of life of things, the decisions that we are making now will be very important. So like even from modular furniture that instead of like throwing away after the end of lease can be moved over to the next lease, or innovative materials that not only reduce the impact on environment, but also enhance it, like, so all these technologies will be much more common in the future.
you're speaking my language. Definitely, that's part of what we're hoping to do as well. So thank you for raising that. So Eric, a question for you. You know, look, as you've been on sort of the co-working side and you know, really heading up, you know, just from sort of the general leadership side. As a leader, what do you know, for a company, you know, for people who are say, okay, I want to put in an innovation and I want to be able to put in an effective sustainability strategy, what would be your recommendation to a company or to a manager looking to do that?
It would be to really consider everything. And what I mean is decisions that you wouldn't otherwise think directly impact that to consider. And what one example of that, so a study just came out. I was also going to answer your previous question this way. I think last month, that found that, you know, people who are working from home are reducing their carbon by 4 more days, or remote by 4 more days a week, are reducing their carbon footprint by 54%. And those who are doing partially remote, so 4 days or less, which I would venture to guess might be all of us, right, on this call, they can reduce their carbon footprint by up to 29%. So just, you know, the act of remote work, which is this thing we're all still grappling with, or, you know, more flexible work, it embeds within itself, you know, sustainability outcomes at the very least. So, you know, as the business of office continues, or the business of office real estate continues to disintermediate itself from workplace, right? Because what we've actually taken for granted for a long time is that, you know, work is done in an office space, and therefore it's very easy to sort of marry the two, the building where the thing takes place. It's now omni-channel, right? And we've seen it with retail over the years already. So the act of shopping is done online and in stores, right? And so what does it mean when the act of work happens online and then in offices? And how does that impact, you know, the acceleration of office becoming more of a hospitality or an operating business, a la hospitality? So all of these things are sort of, I think, the big changes that are coming, and we're already starting to grapple with. And as those take effect, so too do sort of various or new approaches you can take to achieving more sustainable outcomes in everything that happens.
Interesting. Gaurav, your perspective?
Sure, David. I think to your question about, you know, what are the next 5 to 10 years, I think when we talk about sustainability, there are 3 key pockets we're talking about: E, S, and G, right? I think Delphine and Eric and I think Rishabh, we talk about environment, and which is very relevant, right? Carbon emissions and all that. One key thing that I think also needs a lot of importance is the social well-being. That falls into the S bucket of ESG. And when I say social well-being, after COVID, you have seen even people who are working from home, they are facing different issues now, right? Now there's a group who wants to work from home, and there's a group that are feeling too lonely, or there are too many different kind of things that are coming up, right? So even there's a new problem that you might have seen, that people who are working from home with families, they don't really have exact space to work from home because home was not designed to work to start with. And this is where I think new solutions, right? Maybe a digital home place where you can actually make an office environment within the home. That's one. And within the office also, there should be some innovation where people can balance these two, right? At least in Singapore, if you have heard that a lot of cases where people are mentally stressed because of work, and sometimes they're not able to balance their office and work. The boundaries have changed. I mean, for myself as well, and I'm being in consulting field, it's really, there's no stopping point anymore, right? Because you have your laptop round the clock. So you start in the morning and you don't finish it. You just take a breaks in between. So it's almost like that. So I think this is where a lot of innovation is required. We adapted to COVID quite fast. We kind of got to Zoom and Teams and all these things, but we kind of lost the whole social well-being of people. So that's something I think really need to be focused on.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that Eric and Gaurav that you've made. I mean, obviously, look, I think the environmental impacts are undeniable, right? I mean, it's really stunning to hear sort of the reduction in carbon footprint. At the same time, work from home is a thing, and I for one, obviously with our business, we believe that's here to stay. I think looking at it from the other side, though, now, if you are, say, a company that's grappling now with, okay, I've got a bunch of people working from home, or you're a real estate developer, and obviously the news is like in the United States, you have New York, Midtown Manhattan vacancy rates of 18%, San Francisco 30-something%. How does that translate, say, from the other side? And this is a question to all of you. I mean, we know, say, from the user side, what the benefits and downsides are, but with this whole wave and the impact on real estate, how does that play out? And maybe you can start with Delphine, because obviously we're working with as sort of a real estate developer.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the impact of work from home, the change from post-COVID, and the impact that's having on, for example, things like vacancy rates in office buildings.
Yes,
how is that, as from a developer perspective, or from that, how do you see, how do you deal with that, or how are you looking to try and resolve that?
In Europe, it has quite a high impact, for example, in France, in Ile-de-France around Paris. But because there has been really a shift in the habits and in the requirements of remote work, at least 2 days a week, for example. And this now is I would say is considered as a basic in working contracts, while before COVID it was not at all. It was much more specific, and you would not dare really being remote 2 days in I would say traditional companies, and not in IT. But here in Luxembourg is very different, because we are a very small country with a lot of people coming from France, Belgium, and Germany, and there are rules that are limiting the remote work for the foreigners coming to Luxembourg. That's why that we don't have such an impact in the reduce of the demand for office square meters. However, all the companies have changed towards much more flexible working spaces. Ourselves, we have moved to our new headquarters with a flex office organization, coming from nearly one office for 2 or 3 persons. So we have moved in a well-certified building also. So this is something important for how the people can feel and be comfortable to come at work. In fact, this is mostly in order to keep the attractivity of the workspace, the office, for the employees. And this is a key challenge, because for quite a time, in fact, you could be much more comfortable at home than in the office. For some people who had large houses with their own offices, it was very comfortable. For people with lower income, COVID has been a nightmare. So, because it had not the place for it. So now it's how we make the place, the working space, very attractive for everybody, comfortable. So we are in activity-based working. It's not very easy to adapt, to make the change. And for example, we are rethinking of the flex office in order to enhance the project, the work, the project team, in order for them to meet and to not to be in two different places when they come. So we have to organize differently the work, and yes, for example, the smart office application. Here, I'm not talking about the smart building with the monitor above the BMS, but in fact, we've got one single application for monitoring the building comfort and for monitoring our reservation for rooms and also for seats, open the door and all this. So yes, I think that the changes after COVID, the changes in the way we are working needs much more technologies and much more agility in the use of the working spaces. So it's, for me, there are three really targets for smart building technologies: is sustainability, asset management, and comfort and health, because we have also CO2 sensors and these kind of things.
Well, thank you for that. Just keeping an eye on the clock, we've got one last question for you. And just very briefly, it's a bit of a fun question, I think, to end the panel off. But if you had a superpower to bring positive change to the industry, then what would that be, and what change would you bring, and why? Eric, why don't we start off with you?
Sure. I think the one that would make me the most money is be able to overnight sort of do a roll up of all these point solutions that could create an actual building OS, which I think is sort of one of the things that's really needed. But no, my answer to your question is I would make everyone at real estate companies a tech expert overnight.
Amen to that. Totally agree. Gaurav.
Yeah, my thought would be, I mean, I know we're talking about a bit of workspace, but if you talk about a superpower and what can I do if I only have to do one thing, I think one of the greatest impact the real estate industry can do is in terms of affordable housing. I know this is not something we are looking for in terms of this discussion, but I really think housing is a basic need for people. Maybe in Singapore it's kind of sorted, but across the world it's something that is really required. So if a positive change needs to be done, I would really vouch for affordable housing that real estate company can do using tech.
Yeah, that is such a problem in so many parts of the world. I totally agree with that. Rishabh.
If I had a superpower, I think I would imagine something that very seamless, like a technology that very seamlessly fuses the physical and the virtual aspect of office, so that we can, transition from "can you hear me" to be like, "oh, I feel like you're here with me," into like holographics or something that really fuses these two, because we feel that it is here to stay, that there will always be these two realms of working, where one is physical for culture building, mentoring, and the other one is for the actual work, the active working. So something that seamlessly fuses these two together.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, even now, basic sort of video conferencing, it's like sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes you have to plug in and then you're trying to fiddle around. Totally agree with that. Ibrahim.
I always wish to have a superpower, especially for the sustainability part. I wish, well, if I had a superpower, we could monitor and control every individual, how they are consuming the energy, and we can get an alert to them. Oh, okay, Mr. David or Mr. Ibrahim, we are wasting the water, wasting the electricity. Warning, alarm. This is very important because okay, we are talking about education, etc. But I think it's up to a level, because people they don't want to leave their comfort zone. Unfortunately, you go to the hotel, they keep the ACs open. It's free, because especially if it's free, but they are not able to look from the perspective that it is this is effectively climate change also. So if I had a superpower, I wish I could monitor every single person and monitor and control, of course, their energy consumption. Yeah, I wish.
I'm going to go right now to turn off my aircon. No, just
yeah.
Delphine, how about yourself?
For me, it's more collaboration and transparency in the cost benefits of technology. for every stakeholders. In fact, we've got the value chain, which is very fragmented, and all the technologies serve different stakeholders. For example, if we are implementing a building operating system, it's a cost for the real estate. The benefits will be mostly for the tenants because it will reduce its energy consumption. It will enable much more management of the asset, well, not asset management, but for the workplace management. And right now, who is ready really to pay for it? No one wants to pay for the benefits of the others. Even if we talk about the BEAM implementation, it is also a little bit the same. And how can we really share the benefits of the technologies? And I think maybe new business model, or really having the real value of the technology and the sustainability value, for example, produced for the tenants. I think there is really an issue here, and for me, it's a very a break for change.
Thank you. And look, thank you to all the panelists. I think this has been very, very insightful. I've certainly gotten a lot out of it, and I appreciate your contributions and your thoughts. So with that, I'll hand this back to Pankaj.
Oh, fantastic! What an insightful conversation. We talked about various topics. We talked about the challenges of the industry. We talked about sustainability initiatives. We talked about superpower, right? And I think we could have easily, kept going with this for hours and hours, because the conversation is so interesting. But we will have to move on to the next exciting segment of the event, which we call roast session. And why we love to host roast sessions, because most of the times when startups are pitching their solution to the VCs, to the customers and partners, they get some sugar-coated feedback. Even if they don't like the solution, they don't give any brutal, honest feedback. And I think that's a problem, right? And we want our startup founders to have as honest feedback as possible. And this is why we love to host this roast session, where David will be doing a brief pitch of Booqed, and then we will be getting some feedback, questions from the panelists without any hesitation. So, David, why don't you please share your screen?
Sure,
and
let me go ahead and I'll share my screen.
And panelists, please be ready. No hesitation, no restrictions. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me just, computer's actually being quite slow. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Pankaj, once again, and for setting this up. Look, for me, when I start pitches like these, I always like to start with, real life customer cases. So I'd like to introduce you to my friend Ben. And Ben's the CEO of a fast-growing tech company in Hong Kong. Last year, he moved his team from a co-working space into his very own private office. His team likes it there, they do good work, but Ben's had problems with the office. For one thing, he lacks meeting spaces. So everybody is either going down to the Starbucks next door, or they're creating real noise whenever they're sitting together. At the same time, fitting everybody into his office with the growth is a real challenge. As well, he has people who are working from home or working from third places. So be able to manage his team is very, very challenging. So Ben thought about renovating to create some meeting rooms and offices, but he was put off by the cost. It's very, very expensive. He was also worried about spending money now when his lease expires in 1 year. So Ben's dilemma reflects some common pain points in commercial real estate. First, office decisions can be a nightmare. Companies are forced to anchor their growth assumptions in office leases that can extend over multiple years, as we talked about in the panel. Getting it wrong means either you've got too much space and are wasting money, or you don't have enough space. Secondly, the rise in work from home has knock-on effects on companies in terms of how they manage their teams and how they get the most out of their existing real estate assets. It's also resulted in a need for more flexibility and change. But what if I told you that you could build flexibility into your office at up to 70% less than the cost of traditional renovations? What if you could gain access to key data analytics to be able to maximize your office assets? And what if the renovations could be done in days rather than months. I'm David, co-founder and CEO of Booqed, and that's where we come in. With our Workplace to Go solution, we offer a modular space as a service platform comprising hardware and software that enables companies and landlords to easily set up and manage fully automated collaborative workspaces in their existing offices and buildings. So here's how our clients can turn any warm shell into a fully functional collaboration or co-working space. You start off with the modular furniture that you need. That it can include acoustic booths, desks, collaboration areas. Add in the wireless and access and security functions that you need for your space. Then install our access control, booking technology, and our occupancy sensors to be able to automate the space. You can manage the space with our mission control platform, which includes data analytics on how each space or each desk is being used. Finally, we can also provide a fully managed service, which includes remote network management and support, as well as things such as scheduled site cleaning services. So in short, Workplace to Go can easily turn this into this. Our business model is simple and transparent. One-off charges for hardware and monthly SaaS fees for our software licenses. In certain use cases, our clients also want to charge for the use of their spaces, and we can also do revenue sharing based on the transactions. So we launched our first Workplace to Go module, our Smart Booths, back in May 2021. Today, we have clients across property, education, finance, healthcare, and technology sectors. Clients such as Tandem, who is turning an empty space in an apartment block in Toronto into an automated co-working amenity for their residents. Or Hong Kong's Chinacon Group, which is using our Smart Booths to activate unused areas of their retail malls to generate additional revenues. They use Booqed because our solution has been proven to either increase revenues or asset values through amenities and monetization opportunities, or reduce costs through automation, rapid deployment, and decreased renovation costs. And this cost differentiation is significant. According to JLL, the cost of doing a standard renovation in North America, just for an open plan office, is $220 per square foot. Using Workplace to Go, it's $50 per square foot. Now we're in the middle of scaling up, and here's our playbook on how we actually plan to do that over the next 24 months. First, we could be tripling our inbound lead funnel by investing more in events and growth campaigns. Secondly, we're developing channel partnerships with systems integrators and office furniture providers, as well as design companies in our core markets. We can grow even faster by extending these partnerships internationally. Then there's this. We're working on making sure our software can work with any office furniture system, existing meeting rooms or workspaces in a building or offices, which vastly increases our addressable market. I'm David. I've grown startups in Europe and Asia. My co-founders, Charles, deep operations background in private equity, and Ken, who is part of the team that developed the contactless card system that's being used for the Beijing Metro. Between us, we have 3 exits and 6 patents. Now, earlier I talked about my friend Ben and his office problem. Well, he solved this problem with our access control and booth system, and you can see the picture on the bottom right. So in the first month after installation, our data analytics showed that these new spaces were being used 6 hours of the day. So his team loved them. He ended up buying a couple of additional booths. Now he's just moved his team into a new office and moved our systems there along with him. So we've actually helped to future-proof his workplace, which tells me that office space is becoming a service made to fit business strategies where productivity is synonymous with tech-enabled collaboration. Our vision then is of a future workplace that is as easy and plug and play as any other outsourced tech stack within a company. Now we're scaling rapidly. We're seeking pilot opportunities with real estate developers, educational institutions, or Fortune 1000 corporates in Asia, North America, and Europe, as well as potential channel and financing partners. Flexibility in real estate does not have to cost the earth. Talk to us to find out how we can help. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, David. And time to take some interesting questions. Ryan is clapping.
Happy to go first.
Please.
Sure. So, David, when I sort of first knew of Booqed, I think you guys were leading with the booths, right? But from what I see now, that's sort of one part of a catalog. other hardware, I guess you could say.
Correct.
I guess, could you help clarify that and then talk through that transition?
Yeah, so actually it's a longer story, and I won't bore you with all of it, but basically, look, COVID was close to an extinction event for us. We actually launched as a digital marketplace for short-term meeting and workspaces, and we were doing very, we were growing very rapidly. It's hard to do that when everything is shut down because of COVID. But understanding that, look, we believe that flex space and the way people are working is changing, we pivoted. Now, to your question, we're actually a software company. We're a tech company. We're not a hardware company. We don't manufacture whatever. We work with partners. However, what we found, particularly in the real estate industry, was that just presenting the software solution in itself, people weren't getting it, right? So we actually launched just the booking system, as a freemium service. We got literally no conversions. But when we then paired it with sort of the acoustic booths, all of a sudden people they got it, right? So they would go, oh, this access control and your booking system and sensors, can we use that for our existing meeting rooms? Can we use that for our existing offices? And that's how basically, so look at the hardware really as a Trojan horse, where the software and the services, it kind of contextualizes it for real estate owners in a way that just offering the software we found out couldn't. So that's kind of the reason why sort of we have both the hardware and software. The other reason we found, and this is something where I think Rishab might sort of have a lot of experience in this, is that one of the big problems that we're seeing right now in the real estate industry is, say a Fortune 500 company, they want to renovate their offices. They'll, at least in Hong Kong, what they'll do is they'll bring in an interior design firm. And then that interior design firm then contracts out to various providers. The problem is once you add the tech in, you have to do the integration. And the integration is where so many solutions fall down. And I cannot tell you the number of very large companies which are having problems, even with things such as room bookings, where you wouldn't expect that to be problematic in this day and age, but it is. So this is where we felt that, at least in the interim, we had to do both the hardware and the software.
Right. And then just one quick follow-up from me, and then I'll turn it over to others who I'm sure have very interesting questions. So I caught that you said the model is license per license. So is that like, are you charging on a per user basis? And or per project or per office, and whatever the answer, sort of how did you get there? Because I think that's a very interesting, I've seen every single version of that with different, real estate related SaaS commercial models. And I think the jury's still out on what the right one is, if there even is a single answer. So can you talk through?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So at the moment, when we talk about the license for the software, that's actually on a per access control, or per what we call we have this device called ICD3, which is essentially, it's an IoT device. But it basically manages all the services. It kind of connects into the into the various services that we offer, and then so we charge based on a per ICED3 device that's actually deployed. So I'll give you an example. So I mentioned Tandem in Canada. So I think right now we have 6 devices that are deployed there. So they've got 4 booths. They've got the main entrance. They've got a couple of spaces that are where our sensors and whatnot are deployed. So we actually deploy based on a seat or a booth basis or door basis at the moment. Now, as we start rolling out larger projects, that's something that we're also considering, and it might be on one of the things we're considering, particularly for large deployments. We're talking 5, 10,000, 20,000 square feet. We might need to actually move to a PSF basis. So that's something that we're actually looking at. It's just that we have not had huge deployments at the moment, although these are in the works, and we're actually talking to a bunch of very large potential customers for that. So thanks for the question.
Thank you, Eric.
I can go next.
Yep, please.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. So the first one was, you mentioned that you have data analytics for the usage of, say, your pods or any furniture. Do you offer it as a service for clients to say, if they have 4-person pod and your data says that 1 PAX is being utilized more than the 4-person, would you swap it over for 2 1-person pods in the future, or is it like a cost for the client? So my question is, does your charge include expansion or conversion of certain areas in design into a more optimize usage thing, or is it one-time hardware and that's the client has to stay with that?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting question, because what we're seeing, and obviously, as you kind of rightly point out, the flexibility is one of the major things, right? So if you've got, say, 4 packs and nobody's using it, but all the 2 packs are really busy, or you've got, say, some workspaces where for whatever reason nobody wants to sit there, right? Can we change it? Absolutely, we can change it. What we have, I'll be very honest though, Rishabh, and candidly, that kind of flexibility, I think we need to look at. So we're looking at rolling out sort of financing options. So basically, so lease finance, which can allow greater flexibility. At the moment, what we're seeing with most of our deployments is that it's sort of an outright hardware purchase. So they can move it around as they see fit. If they wanted an add, then of course they could do that. But what we believe is that being able to roll out sort of a financing option, a leasing option, could allow greater flexibility for companies to change on the fly, simply because what they've got isn't meeting their needs, or they've outgrown it. Now, there's another actually interesting part to this, which is and I'm not going to call this AI, because I really don't want to be sort of a bandwagon jumper or Me Tooism, but the data that we actually collect in terms of usage. Actually, we have the ability right now, we're working on being able to actually then make recommendations for our clients in terms of whether, say, for a co-working space, if they're wanting to price it to external users, to be able to provide recommendations and suggestions for that. And certainly for companies in real estate, say an occupier, where they can say, okay, look, we know that this space is really, really being used, or you need more 4-packs booths, so you may need more collaboration spaces, that kind of a thing. So we have, the data that we're actually collecting is actually going towards building that out, so that we actually have the flexibility, not only to change with clients on the fly, but also perhaps to even make recommendations or suggestions for them as they're expanding and changing.
Okay, and I think the second question, which your answer leads on to, so all this data that you're gathering, because a lot of time when we talk to our clients about sensors and about tracking, the first thing comes up is privacy, like, because employers are always worried, like, are they being tracked? So what kind of, how does your data sit, and is it in control of your clients, or how do you track data?
Yeah, so we do track data, but so for example, for the sensors, what it is basically at the moment, we're using simple infrared or heat sensors to basically track. So we do not collect IDs. We don't know, say, the identification of people who are there. In terms of, say, the data, so actually working, and we had to do this because one of our projects with WeWork included locations in the UK. So we had to be, essentially, we made sure that, in terms of our data privacy policy, it was EU compliant. So in terms of the data that we're actually collecting, it doesn't reside with us. Typically, it passes through us. We keep very little of that. Now, obviously, with permissions based, then we can keep a little bit more, but typically that resides with the client. That doesn't reside with us.
Yep, I think that were all my questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I can go one question.
Sure.
David, you mentioned about the meeting room, the problems. Now, I can totally agree to it. So in our building, we about 5,000 people, and trust me, getting a meeting room is almost impossible. And to the extent, we have to go to people who have booked the rooms. Some people go and book the room for the whole day, and we request them, can you please release it?
Yeah.
We so agree with that, right? By the way, as we speak, our whole 7 or 8 floors are getting renovated. I don't know, were you part of the tender or not? But that's something recently.
No, we
happened,
weren't. So. We would love to be part of it if it's not too late. But yeah,
the whole space is getting renovated because of this reason. It's typically, it was a very typical accounting office setup, and they are doing a lot of collaboration spaces. So my question is. You mentioned WeWork is something that you're working with. So just trying to a bit more clarification. So is WeWork your client or is also your competition?
No, sorry. Yeah, please finish your question.
Right.
So I didn't.
So because I had you work as software as well as hardware, right? So yeah, that was one question. And joint question is, I know how WeWork kind of suffered as well, right? In terms of the investors, also to be a very net positive business, let's say. Is that something also an issue that you are facing in your business, or how your business model is different from, let's say, from WeWork?
Yeah, So look, it's it's really, really good question. So let me address the first question. So WeWork is definitely a client. So how we're working with them and how this actually came up was, so if you've been to a WeWork, you know they have beautiful spaces, right? But they also have a lot of spaces that are, in some cases, unused. In some cases, they don't have enough meeting rooms to meet demand. So what came up basically with them, and the reason we started, they approached us to start working with them, was essentially to be able to activate some of the large public spaces, which essentially were either being underused or they wanted to find a way to actually increase revenues from that space, or they wanted to deal with a with a shortage of meeting rooms, or all three problems. So how we're working with them actually is very much a sort of a supplier-client relationship. It includes, obviously the acoustic booths, and actually, if you're in Suntec, if you're in Singapore, you can see some of the booths at Suntec or Funan Mall. We still have our kit there. But the other part, to answer your second question, we don't view WeWork as a competitor. In fact, we don't view co-working spaces as a competitor, at least at this point, because what we're dealing with is really, I think, just the acute needs of, say, enterprise customers or institutions or whatever the case may be, in terms of how they're using the existing space. That's where we're seeing a lot of the demand right now, where, say you've got 5,000 square feet and you're trying to change up to be able to meet the needs of a work from anywhere or work from home team. So how do you change that? We talk about activity zones, activity-based workspaces, for example, or moving to a completely flex space model. A lot of companies struggle with that, right? And it's sort of, I think if you're a company and you're pounding nails, everything looks like a nail, right? What this allows you to do is actually provide a lot of flexibility in terms of how you then set up your workplace. And you're not having to spend a huge amount of money in terms of building up fixed assets, putting in new HVAC, putting up walls, putting up new wiring. You can just stick this modular stuff in, and you can change it around. I think to Rishabh's point, you can change it around as you need or you see fit. But also then, if and when you move offices, you don't need to tear everything out. It doesn't need to go into landfill. You can just take that with you and install it in your new office. So from that perspective, I don't see necessarily a direct competition with co-working. Where we are, I think, starting to overlap a little bit is in terms of, say, the complete managed services that we're offering. So for example, I had a meeting with a real estate developer earlier today, and they here in Hong Kong, and look, they're facing a huge vacancy problem, believe it or not. I mean, I think we're talking about, I think in some cases, some buildings, 20–30% vacancy, which for Hong Kong is crazy. It's unheard of. So they're trying to figure out how to deal with that. And so they're talking about taking some of their vacant spaces and being able to put our solution in there as sort of a automated co-working. So from that perspective, potentially there is some overlap or competition with existing co-working. But again, it's a slightly different model. I don't know, based on sort of the use cases that we're seeing with our existing, how people are using it, that somebody would take a 12-month contract on that. I'm not sure. That's something that we'll have a bit more data, I think, in the coming months. But otherwise, no. I mean, we actually see co-working as sort of a creative opportunity for us, as opposed to a competitive opportunity.
I think Ibrahim has a question. Ibrahim?
Right, exactly, Pankaj. David, since we are talking about competitive market in this sector, are you planning to change the business model also? Because you see, especially in the energy sector, there are investors and they are sharing like even the profits. Are you planning to do such kind of changes on the business model? Just want to hear your idea for the future.
Yeah, I think we're open. Look, I mean, what we're finding with our existing enterprise clients is that, sort of a purchase and a SaaS model seems to work quite well. But, and I think this came up with another question is look, there are, for example, things where we would consider revenue share models, or we would consider financing models as well, just to sort of maximize the flexibility. So, absolutely, I don't think this is necessarily set in stone. I think, there's always that, I think with startups, there's always that tension, right? There's the need to kind of standardize so that you can scale. But then at the same time, when you're dealing with real estate and the needs there's also the customization aspects. And so I think what you're seeing with this is sort of a little bit of that tension there, where I think what we'll see is that, if I had to guess, probably 70 to 80% of that will be sort of a standard kind of, purchase slash SaaS model. But then I think for strategic opportunities and certain things where there is customization required, we would consider different business models for that. Because at the end of the day, I think, what we're seeing here is definitely sort of one size doesn't quite fit all. You do have to do a bit of customization, particularly when it comes to real estate.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Yeah, Delphine, please go ahead.
Yes, I just take the final sentence about real estate. And yes, I've got the feeling that, in fact, your value proposal can fit to different use cases. And maybe this can make a little bit of confusion, because with your competitors, who can be your partners? And for me, there are, for example, as a real estate, and we have an asset owners, I think, yes, there is value for the asset owners that have, as you say, vacancy. And in fact, it's kind of, and even for a real estate, you could be a kind of partner for plug and play fitting out, or, when we are delivering office square meters, we can say we've got a partner that can do the fitting out, because in fact here there is a kind of a break in the value chain, that we are delivering a building, and then there is the program manager and the company of that it has to deal to the fitting out, and they come with other technologies. Here, for example, in our own headquarters, there is another tenant. We are fully smart building with our app and all the solutions for the access control, for the parking management. They came in, and because their program manager was completely different than for us, that we have no conversation, and they have got another parking management solution in the same parking and other access control in the same building. So 2 badges. And they are doing another way of booking their room. And definitely this decreased the value. Okay, for us, the headquarters was a real demonstrator of the smart building, and our own tenant is not adopting our solution. Therefore, for you, I think there is a very something very specific in dealing for access control. It seems easy. It is not, because the companies can have their own access control, and they want the same for all their different buildings. And here integration can be very complicated. So technologically, access control can be a key point. But for real estate, having a partner that can say, okay, we are all plug and play. It is not our business, it is his business, but we know that we are fully compatible for our technology with his technology. And in fact, it's a value of X dollars per square meters. It can be interesting. Yes, for existing, for example, yes, we've got a headquarters here. Yes, of course, we have thought about flex office, and we need much more meeting rooms, small meeting rooms. Why? Because after the COVID, everyone is doing its meeting nearly alone, sometimes too, in Visio. So we need, no, open space is not compatible with the Visio explosion after COVID. So we really have to think again about the issue of open spaces, because in fact the open spaces are empty and everybody is in a meeting room in Visio. And really this, but if your business is only about the booth and for the meeting room, I think it will be a little bit short and contradictory with the business in the software. So I think, yes, co-working place can be your customers, but then you really have to deal with at large scale with them, I think, and real estate can be your partner. So I think that because all the questions have been on this, kindly word your customers. We are a partner. I think that just an example in your pitch of someone who is having its offices and lack meeting rooms, it's easy to understand, but I think it narrows your business case. Well, I'm talking because I'm in Europe, so I think it's maybe a different way of looking to this. But yes, for me, it was not clear for your business. The customer at the beginning, your customers, your business model. Is it renting, for example? You can be subscription with the hardware too. I think there are things to think about it.
No, thank you for that. I mean, if I can just sort of respond, look, I think look, you raise a really good issue, and one of the challenges that we had as a business was, even, and I'll talk about this specifically with Asia, is that from an enterprise perspective, what we don't find is consistency in terms of who's the decision maker, who we talk to. So, for example,
there are so many,
so many, right? And so, with some, it's so we just closed a deal with the university, a very big deal. It's probably about 150,000 US. And, that was the IT manager or the IT department. With, other companies, like some real estate companies, actually, it's the innovation teams that are driving that. With yet other companies, it might be sort of heads of departments. So that's definitely one thing that, has been sort of a bit of a challenge for us. But I think some of that can be dealt with the more use cases that we have. And what we're seeing now is, particularly in Hong Kong, I'll give you an example. We're doing extremely well in the education sector with the universities. We've probably got about 50.
I think that your plugin solution is good, and because exactly. they may want to having paid also solutions. So
exactly. So but the thing is, we haven't been marketing to them. So it's like they see it deployed and they go, "Oh, that's really cool." And then they say, I'd like that. And then they come and approach us. So, I do think there'll be a bit of that as well, that it's not just the push because, as you know, it's very difficult to find that key decision maker. It depends from organization to organization. But if we can do more sort of getting the word out, see more deployments there, then I think there is we can be a lot more effective on that as well. But thank you for your comments. It's very helpful.
I think Branko want to jump in and just make a comment. Branko, are you still here? Oh, he had to leave. I think he has left now. Any other comment, question, any guidance, GTM related to David? Okay, I think this has been extremely insightful conversation. Thanks everybody for your insights on the industry, on the sustainability initiatives again, and I think this is a pretty right time to talk about the sustainability initiatives in the real estate space. Thanks a lot for your questions and feedback, Delphine. I think that's very constructive. And I think this is not the only event or the last event when we are engaging with each other. I think we need to reconnect in the next couple of weeks and see how we can support each other, how we can collaborate, probably help each other with the different initiatives, projects you may be running, and sort of grow the community, right? But again, really appreciate your time. David, you were a fantastic moderator. I think you took questions really well, feedback really well. So thanks to you for that.
Thank you.
And let's talk soon, yeah?
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Much appreciated.
Okay, bye-bye, David. I'm sorry for my delay, really. Sorry. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.